Have you ever encountered someone who seemed cold, distant, or emotionally unreachable, yet you couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeper hiding behind that silence? What if their detachment wasn't a sign of apathy, but a silent defense, carefully crafted, piece by piece, over years of quiet endurance? In this video, we're going to uncover the unseen world behind emotional withdrawal. We'll explore the hidden psychology of those who carry deep, unhealed wounds that don't show on the surface but echo through every behavior. Drawing upon the powerful insights of Carl Jung, we'll examine how suppressed pain can reshape a person's entire identity. We'll see how unresolved trauma subtly influences how people love, connect, protect themselves, or pull away. But more importantly, we'll uncover a path out. Because when pain is brought into the light of awareness, healing doesn't just become possible, it becomes inevitable. So stay with me until the end, because the person you once labeled as hard to love may simply be someone still learning how to feel safe. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to The Way's Secret and join our Telegram community for deeper conversations around Jungian psychology, emotional transformation, and inner healing. Now, let's dive in. Not all pain screams. Some pain learns to whisper. Some pain hides itself in perfect posture, in silent stares, in a voice that never raises. There are people who walk through life carrying heartbreak that no one sees. They don't look broken. They seem composed, controlled, even detached. But make no mistake, what you're witnessing isn't indifference, it's survival. Unprocessed pain doesn't simply vanish. As Jung described, it slips into the unconscious and begins to live there, silently shaping how we behave, how we love, how we react, and who we think we are. This suffering hides not just in our silence, but in the roles we play. Some withdraw, some become hyper-alert, some intellectualize everything to avoid feeling anything. And slowly, these coping strategies harden into what looks like personality. But they're not. They are masks. They are survival systems. They are the versions of us that pain demanded we become. The psyche doesn't sit down and plan how to survive. It adapts in real time. It protects through instinct, not reason. That's why someone who appears emotionally numb or distant isn't rejecting connection. They're shielding themselves from the very thing that once shattered them. Carl Jung called these hidden reactive patterns complexes, autonomous emotional responses built around past pain. They aren't conscious, they aren't chosen, and they aren't weaknesses. They are armor. And the thicker the armor, the deeper the wound it protects. Those who've been hurt most deeply, especially by people they once trusted, often develop the most sophisticated ways of hiding. Trust betrayed in childhood, love that turned into loss, connection that once caused chaos. These memories don't just disappear, they become walls, and behind those walls a wounded self still waits, hoping one day it won't have to protect itself anymore. When someone has been wounded in the places where they should have been safest, home, love, trust, the soul doesn't just scar. It builds a fortress. Vulnerability starts to feel like exposure. Emotional closeness begins to resemble danger. So, without even realizing it, they start laying bricks, walls of detachment, layers of skepticism, unshakable self-reliance. Not because they don't crave connection, but because closeness once meant betrayal. The unconscious remembers what the mind tries to forget. It acts like a silent gatekeeper, constantly scanning for danger, even in moments that are completely safe. The past no longer lives as a memory. It becomes a lens, through which every new experience is filtered. And over time, these defenses begin to take form. Carl Jung called this the persona, the social mask we learn to wear. At first, it's just a role we play to stay functional. But for many, it becomes more than a role. It becomes an identity. The calm exterior, the composed tone, the capable demeanor. These aren't always signs of strength. Sometimes they're symptoms of a deeper survival mechanism. Because long ago, being seen meant being hurt. Being open meant being wounded. And so, the performance becomes seamless. So seamless, in fact, that even they begin to believe it. But masks, no matter how polished, are heavy, and they are lonely. Healing doesn't require ripping the mask away. It starts by softening it, loosening our grip, allowing just enough space for the soul to breathe, letting a little light leak through the cracks. Because not all pain builds walls. Some pain does something different. It heightens awareness, it tunes the heart. Some people who've suffered deeply become incredibly attuned to others. They notice everything. Tone of voice, subtle changes in energy, silences that others miss. They comfort without being asked. They understand pain not because they've read about it, but because they've lived it. This is what Jung called the wounded healer. A person who brings healing to others precisely because they carry a wound of their own. But even this gift, this beautiful, raw empathy, has a shadow. When empathy isn't rooted in self-awareness, it can turn into something else: projection. Instead of facing their own sorrow, they lose themselves in the sorrow of others. They become the strong one, the emotional anchor, the one who holds everyone else together. And somewhere in that silent giving, they begin to disappear from their own life. They confuse empathy with erasure. Their boundaries dissolve. Their care becomes a form of escape. Compassion without limits becomes exhaustion. Generosity without grounding becomes self-abandonment. True healing, Jung would say, begins when the healer turns inward. When the same gentleness they offer others is finally extended to themselves. That's when empathy transforms from a quiet surrender into an empowered choice, a sacred act of care, one that includes both presence and protection. So before we move on, I hope you're finding meaning in these reflections. If you feel that someone in your life could benefit from this message, please share this video. And if you'd like to support the work we're doing, consider clicking the thanks button below. Your kindness helps us keep going. Now, let's go even deeper. Because there's one more truth we need to face. What happens when the past isn't just a memory, but a silent force still shaping the way we love, live, and feel? Some forms of grief don't come with funerals. They come with silence, with the love that never arrived, with the apology that never came, with the safety that should have been there, but never was. These are invisible losses, and when they're not fully acknowledged, they don't stay in the past. They show up in the present, not as memories, but as patterns. Carl Jung once said, "What we do not bring to consciousness appears in our lives as fate." This is how fate often works, through repetition. Loneliness that seems to follow you everywhere. Overthinking that won't let your mind rest. Emotional disconnection that keeps you at arm's length from joy. And in the face of that quiet suffering, many retreat into the mind. Thinking becomes a safe haven. Analysis becomes a form of control. The mind offers structure. It provides reasons. It tells you this is why it happened. But it doesn't offer resolution. Because as Jung warned us, insight alone isn't healing. Knowing why you're hurt doesn't dissolve the wound. Feeling does, yet for those who've been hurt deeply, feeling is exactly what the ego learned to avoid. Pain was overwhelming once, too much to hold, so it was buried. But healing begins the moment we stop bearing it, when we allow the grief, the fear, the anger to rise, to pass through the body, to be acknowledged, to be spoken, to be grieved. Grief, when honored, becomes a doorway, It doesn't erase the past, but it gives it a place. The scar stays, but it stops bleeding. And when pain is named, truly named, and felt without resistance, it loses its power to shape the future. The psyche begins to reorganize itself. The inner structure shifts from defense to presence, and for the first time, life stops being a reaction to what once happened and becomes a connection to what is happening, right here, right now. That's the transformation. What once looked like coldness or contradiction in someone's behavior often has nothing to do with who they are and everything to do with what they've survived. Carl Jung never saw suffering as the end of the story. He saw it as the beginning of a deeper one. Because when pain is brought into the light of awareness, it stops defining us. It becomes a threshold, not just a wound to heal, but a call to live more consciously, more fully, more freely. So, if something in this message resonated with you, if you recognized even a glimpse of your own story here, take a moment to subscribe to The Way's Secret. This is where we explore the deep language of the psyche, the quiet truths beneath behavior, and the kind of healing that doesn't start in the outside world, but in the soul's return to itself. And if you've made it this far, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below with the words, "I'm learning to listen to my pain." That one sentence tells me something powerful. It tells me you're not just watching. You're waking up, you're choosing awareness. And that is a beginning. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep walking the path inward.